Tuesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good day and staying warm. Browns, rest of the NFL going through the playoffs, getting ready for the Super Bowl. But before the Super Bowl, it'll be the Senior Bowl, Mobile, Alabama. The draft starts there, as they like to say. Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, will be at the Senior Bowl covering things. Mary Kay, when we talk about this, I know you've answered this in one of your Hey Mary Kays. There are two quarterbacks who are slightly ahead, or maybe even significantly ahead of the field there. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. Do you think either of them jumps off the page as being worth, one of the top two picks in the NFL draft?
I'm guessing that those two guys will go pretty high. That's what happens with quarterbacks, even in what is not supposed to be a really strong quarterback year. There's always a premium on quarterbacks, and people will reach for them if they have to. And so we'll have to see how it plays out. We don't know yet what the NFL types believe in Cam or Shedeur yet, or even Jalen Milroe. We don't really have those guys weighing in yet. We're going to have a much better feel for all of that once we get down to the Senior Bowl, and then we move on through the combine and things like that. But as of right now, we really don't know. And until the NFL personnel guys and coaches get involved, it's really hard to ascertain how they feel about these quarterbacks.
Yeah, another one of your Hey Mary Kays, and I'm curious your opinion on this. Deion Sanders, his son Shedeur, is one of the guys they're talking about as one of the top quarterbacks. Does he influence the Browns' decision at quarterback, do you think?
I think it has to be taken into account. What we don't know about Deion at this point is, does he have any reservations whatsoever about Shedeur coming to Cleveland? If he does, then they have to work through that. You can't ignore it because it will be part of the process. He has already said that he's going to intervene. So if he has any qualms, any questions about that whatsoever, it's just something that's going to have to be addressed and dealt with as soon as possible if it hasn't been already. And it probably has. I'm sure the Browns have been out to Colorado. I'm sure they've scouted Shedeur very, very thoroughly. I'm sure they've had some conversations already with Deion, and they'll probably have more as they go through this process. And if it's something where they determine that he has some kind of an issue with this, then they have to try to change his mind, I guess, if they want to draft Shedeur. Because it's not going to be fun if you have the family and the entourage not on board with the plan. You want them on board, especially when you have a very, very strong father figure like Deion involved. I mean, he's not going to sit back and let Shedeur's career happen for him. He's going to be very, very involved with it. So I do think it's something that you have to meet it head on and take an unflinching look at it and decide how you want to proceed.
Yeah, and it's not unprecedented. Everybody points to Eli Manning, Archie Manning, kind of made that statement, and it forced the Chargers to trade Eli to the New York Giants. Turned out fine for the Chargers. They ended up with Phillip Rivers. There's another instance that people overlook a little bit with John Elway's father forced his way out of Indianapolis, Baltimore, the Colts. That one didn't work out as well for the Colts after getting rid of John Elway to the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, these things do happen, and it's not something to be taken lightly. If you think that a family is going to intervene and make things difficult for you, or you go ahead and draft him and they're going to force a trade or force their hand or threaten to sit out or whatever the case may be, I mean, you just don't want that kind of drama. That's not what anyone needs right now. The Browns have had years and years and years of quarterback drama. They need something that is going to work for them over the long haul, or at least you want to try for that to happen. You never really know how these young quarterbacks are going to work out. But you don't want to start out with just an insane situation. So they have to make sure it's not that. I'm not saying it is going to be that, but they just have to figure out how that's all going to go. And if Deion is, hey, fine, this is great, then proceed accordingly. But if not, manage it and meet it head on.
Yeah, they're trying to solve the quarterback position, not create more problems within it. With all the talk about potentially waiting until 33 to take a quarterback, so that would be second choice in the second round. And again, this is one of your Hey Mary Kays. Does the fifth-year option, do you think, factor into that? Does it the Browns have a ton of draft capital. Does it motivate them to try to get back into the end of that first round to get the fifth-year option on a rookie deal?
If that is your strategy, that you are going to wait and not use your first-round pick on this quarterback, then it would behoove you to move back into the back end of the first round. And they've got enough picks. They've got a lot of picks. They can probably maneuver some things and get back up into the first round. Even if you only have to move up a couple of spots, it would behoove you to do that so that you can have that fifth-year option, which really, really helps out a lot at the end of that contract.
So, again, another one of your readers wanted to know, do you think Justin Fields would fit into Kevin Stefanski's West Coast system or whatever system it's going to be? And I'm going to throw in, is there another quarterback, veteran quarterback, that you think the Browns are paying attention to, monitoring, might even like?
Well, I think there are probably a lot of veteran quarterbacks that they're going to be looking at. Money will be an object, so you're going to want to look at one that's not necessarily going to break the bank for you. But if they decide that they're going with a rookie quarterback who can start for them in 2025 or potentially start for them in 2025, then you can go with more of a bridge quarterback, someone who you don't necessarily need to pay a ton of money to, and someone who can come in here and get the job done. So we don't know exactly what their strategy is yet. Are they planning on going with more of a veteran quarterback for 2025 to get back to winning, and maybe then draft more of a developmental quarterback? Or are they just going to throw all their chips on a rookie quarterback who can come in here and start right away, and then you go with more of a bridge guy? So they're not going to reveal that strategy, I don't think, anytime soon. They're going to keep everyone guessing as long as they possibly can. And yeah, I think Justin Fields is someone that you can take a look at. And here's the thing, and I think this is important. I don't think you need to go out and find a quarterback who you can jam into your system. I think that you need to go out and find the best quarterback that you can find, and then you work with that quarterback and you draw the best out of him and you maximize his skill set. I mean, Andy Reid was a West Coast coach, and then he had to do things differently when he got Patrick Mahomes. That's what you do. You tailor your offense to fit the quarterback and maximize his skill set. And Kevin Stefanski has the ability to do that, and Tommy Rees has the ability to do that. They've run different kinds of schemes and different kinds of offenses. So I think the notion that the Browns have to go back to the play action, under center, boot, West Coast, wide zone type of scheme, I don't know if you have to do that. I think you can incorporate some of that. But if you find a dual threat quarterback that you love, then that's what you're going to run.
I guess the other question is, do you think Andrew Berry could potentially trade for a veteran quarterback that a team's looking to move on from? We've seen him do it pretty well with wide receivers. Is there a veteran quarterback that you think he might try to work a trade for?
I think pretty much right now everything is on the table. A trade, signing a free agent, drafting a rookie high that you think can start for you. And I think what happens is you have to see how some of these things shake out. It's still early in the process. You hear in Minnesota that maybe they're going to turn things over to J.J. McCarthy. And does that mean that Sam Darnold is going to be available? In Pittsburgh, Russell Wilson, are they going to hang on to Russell? Are they going to let Russell go and move over to Justin Fields? So these are things that the Browns don't know yet how all these things are going to work out. Last year, there was some thought that maybe they would re-sign Joe Flacco, and then Jameis Winston became available, and they felt that he would be a better fit with Deshaun Watson. So I think that they kind of have to see how all these things are going to be playing out. And as they do go to the Senior Bowl and the Combine, that's when you start to figure out which quarterbacks are actually going to become available.
So before we go to break, this is from Over the Cap. They are projecting that the Browns will get a couple of sixth-round picks, Joe Flacco, Jordan Elliott, free agent signings that will net the Browns sixth-round supplementary picks in this draft. They also will get a supplementary seventh-round pick, so they will, in theory, be able to pick Mr. Irrelevant, final pick in the draft, if you will, after the Chiefs. The only reason I mention this, Browns have had a bunch of picks, so they get 2 more 6th and potentially a 7th compensatory picks. Andrew Berry's been pretty good about turning 4th, 5th, and 6th round picks into players that can be useful to the roster.
Yeah, he has done a nice job with those late round picks. You've got to give him a lot of credit for that. Most of the time, those players don't make the team, but they have done a nice job all the way deep into the draft, and in all the way into the 7th round in some cases. So, yeah, I think that that'll be a pretty big deal for them if they do get those 2 6th rounders and even that 7th rounder, and that would give them a total of potentially 12 picks, which they can maneuver and trade around and do some different things, because they're really probably not going to want to add 12 players to the football team next year, but it will give them some bargaining power.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Are you ready? The Ohio Lottery is about to unleash 50 new millionaires on Ohio. Want a chance to become one? Play VIP Millions. With 50 $1 million winning tickets, it's your best chance to win $1 million ever.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
It could be so easy to overlook Tommy Rees as an offensive coordinator, especially after the abysmal offense that we put on the field. One thing I will say is the after effect of when Ken Dorsey leaves a team, the offense gets better. And I'm really, really optimistic that Tommy Rees at least studied from Ken Dorsey's mistakes, and he gets the tutelage from Kevin as far as the play calling and the designing of the offense. I think with Tommy, at least we get the creative side back. So, yeah, I'm excited about Tommy Rees becoming an offensive coordinator. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, it's a little bit of a generalization. I know Buffalo's offense got better after Ken Dorsey left. I don't think it's because Ken Dorsey left. They kind of switched the focus, and Joe Brady did a good job. But I know you wrote an article just about Tommy Rees, and what are your thoughts about his offensive coordinator? I mean, we've heard on this show Nick Saban talk about him as one of the bright young minds when he was at Alabama. We've heard Kevin Stefanski say the same thing. Just your thoughts on Tommy Rees as the OC.
Well, there are some unknowns about what kind of an offensive coordinator he'll make at the pro level, but he was certainly very successful at it at Notre Dame and at Alabama. In 2023, he worked with Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe, did some really, really nice things with him. They won the SEC championship there that year, earned a college football playoff berth. And so that's really saying something. Jalen Milroe is, according to ESPN, the best dual threat quarterback in this draft. So Tommy will have plenty of things to share about Jalen Milroe, who, by the way, will be at the Senior Bowl next week. So that'll be interesting. But just in terms of his ability, people talk about his high football acumen. He ran I'm sure he learned a lot of pro style stuff from Nick Saban, but he runs a lot of different kinds of concepts. I mean, he's very well versed in the RPOs and spread concepts and things like that are coming up to the pro level. But he also ran a power running game, multiple personnel groupings, multiple tight ends, shifting, motion. So I think he does a lot of really good things. And he learned a whole lot of offense last year as well. Learned how to deal with some adversity, learned a lot of things from working very closely with Mike Vrabel. So I think he brings a lot to the table.
I know you also wrote an article about Kevin Stefanski not turning over play calling duties to Ken Dorsey until the middle of the season. And do you think he lets Tommy Dorsey do that, or Tommy Rees do that, rather?
That remains to be seen. We do not know yet what he's going to do in terms of the play calling. Now, I actually think that it might be best for Kevin to take back the play calling, at least in the early going. because Tommy is going to be a first-time coordinator. He's going to be working with potentially 3 new quarterbacks in the quarterback room while Deshaun Watson is recovering from his injury. So that's why I say 3 new ones, in addition to Deshaun. And, he's going to have a lot to deal with in terms of getting those guys acclimated to the system, acclimated just to everything about a new team, a new city, a new career, coming up to the NFL probably from the college ranks. So he's going to have to do all of that. And so I think it would probably be best for Kevin to take back play calling, at least in the early going of the season. And then if things are going the way that Kevin Stefanski wants them to go and Tommy wants them to go, then he can take it, he can turn it over to Tommy if he wants to. But I think at least in the early going, it will probably be best for him to do it himself.
This is kind of interesting as well. So 7 of the top 10 NFL rushing leaders relative to teams made the playoffs. Ravens, Eagles, Commanders, Buccaneers, Packers, Lions, Bills. 3 of the 4 championship teams are on that list. It's kind of interesting because things like that kind of go in cycles. They were moving away from running backs and running the ball. Now they're moving back to it. I think you kind of touched on it. Tommy Rees's teams and Kevin Stefanski's teams before last year ran the football well. Tommy Rees, you go down the list, and teams that he was the OC for have had a lot of success running the football.
Yeah, and they're going to have to basically revamp and overhaul their running game, their blocking schemes, and kind of get it back together in that regard and really become that power running game again. I mean, you saw how effective it was with Saquon Barkley in these playoffs and this season, and Derrick Henry. My goodness, I mean, those 2 guys for sure are making the running back position look really, really good. And unfortunately, of course, for the Browns, they had their version of Saquon and Derrick Henry in Nick Chubb, and it just didn't work out for him with the second major catastrophic knee injury. Now, he may be back in 2025, but I don't think they're counting on him as being their workhorse back. I think they will have to go out and find themselves another sort of lead bruising type back like that to complement Jerome. You can have a 1-2 punch, but I think that in addition to Jerome, they need somebody else to fill that role that Nick played for them so incredibly well over the years. But yeah, certainly the Browns are going to have to get back to a really, really nice running game. That will take pressure off the new quarterback. That will cut down on interceptions and help the defense.
So I guess the question, the line struggled. Some of it was injury related. Some of it was probably they were being asked to block a little differently. Where do you think the offensive line is? Do you think it's as simple as, hey, if they switch what they were doing run blocking wise, they have a new they have a new offensive line coach who goes back to Bill Callahan's coaching tree. Is it as simple as that, or is it more complex than that relative to improving the offensive line?
Well, they were very vocal about the fact that they want to get back to the wide zone scheme that they feel very, very comfortable in. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But I think it is just a matter of committing more so than anything to the run. It's just committing to it. And a lot of those guys talked about that. The more you do something, the better off you're going to be at it. And you could see that. Obviously, we see that year after year with the Ravens. But they, of course, really had it humming along with Derrick Henry there. And, same thing with the Eagles with Saquon. I mean, you can hit that home run if you keep at it and you keep at it. Of course, it helps to have a lead in a game and not fall far behind where you have to just start throwing it all over the place. But a good, consistent running game takes commitment, and it also is going to take a retooling of your blocking schemes, maybe getting back to some of what Bill Callahan did with them, and kind of putting the pieces of the running game back together.
So this is also kind of interesting. These are the 5 most improved players at every position over the second half of the season, 2024 by PFF. Number 5, running back Jerome Ford. Snaps from week 1 to 9. There were 264 of them. He graded out at just under 64 with a PFF grade. Now you look at 10 to 18, same amount of snaps, 1 less. He grades out at a 74.2, so significantly higher. Role was reduced with the return of Nick Chubb, still efficient in his opportunities, 5.3 yards carry up until week 9, and then he took off second half, averaging 5.7 yards an attempt. Forced 8 or more missed tackles, 74.2 grade, was 15th in the NFL. And he's kind of an interesting one, being Jerome Ford. There are some huge runs. I think if the Browns can find a way to get away from the 0 or negative runs, you know, you get 2 or 3 yards instead of 0 or a negative run, and then you get those home runs. I think that's kind of what they envisioned for Jerome Ford.
Yeah, I think so. I do think so. You know, Jerome is someone who I thought really, really did heat up in the second half of the season and really got rolling. And I think he'll even do better when he is involved in that 1-2 punch, and he has someone else that, you know, that can take a little bit of the, you know, the tread off of his tires as well. So, you know, I think that if you get someone, some kind of a combination of a bruising Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb type of person, where you have a combo of some speed, some ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, some power. I think that'll pair really, really nicely with Jerome, who can do all of the above and has that speed to go along with it. So I think everybody's excited about a return to the running game next year.
All right, so this one was a little surprising for me. Third on that list of the top 5 most improved, Ethan Posick. Snaps from week 1 through 9, 262, had a 47.9 PFF grade. Week 10 had twice as many snaps, 553, 62.6 PFF grade. Started off the season poorly, 19 pressures allowed. He locked in week 10 onward, earned 68.8. 11th among centers, 2.6 pressure, was 7th lowest at the position. The other thing, if you think about that wide zone, he's a center that can get out and pull on his own. And that, how many runs did you see Ethan Posick getting out and leading, you know, as a pulling center of all things?
Yeah, I mean, they've got so much talent on that offensive line, and they really need to get back to doing so many of the things that they can do well. They're athletic, as you said, they can move, the center can pull. Here's hoping for everyone that Joel Bitonio comes back. He's an amazing athlete, of course. And so, yeah, Ethan did a really, really nice job. And these guys want to show what they can do. Offensive linemen love to block for the run. They absolutely love to do it. So hopefully they'll all be able to get back to doing that more. And it's going to help the entire football team.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I'm going to take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Great show. Howard from Marin County. Yes, I am a graduate of The Ohio State University. Yes, I am a Nirvana that we are number 1. I was thinking, I think the Browns should draft Will Howard as a developmental player. I wouldn't spend time on Milroe or Jackson Dart or somebody else. Remember, Tom Brady, he was at Michigan. He was nothing at Michigan. He was a 6th-round draft choice. I think the same thing could happen for Will Howard. So I think the Browns should definitely take Will Howard, I don't know, 3rd round or something. That's what I would do, would put people in the seats. Thanks. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Mary Kay, Will Howard played really well. The more I see of him, I'm like, oh, okay. You know, he had a stronger arm. He played really well. I don't think you can leave any stone unturned with draft relative to quarterbacks. I wouldn't be opposed to taking one early and taking one late as a developmental guy. You've got to find short-term and long-term solutions to that position. All of the teams that are in the playoffs have their answer at quarterback.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, it was fun to watch Will. He made some really, really nice plays. And he actually, I believe he's going to be at the Senior Bowl next week. So I'll get an opportunity to watch him practice on Tuesday and Wednesday and get a chance to talk to him a little bit. So looking forward to that. But yeah, we don't know. I don't know yet what the Browns are thinking in terms of, are they going to go and just kind of stay where they're at and take a quarterback at number 2? Do they feel like Shedeur Sanders is that guy for them? Is Cam Ward going to go number 1 overall? How do they feel about Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart, who also is going to be at the Senior Bowl? So it should be a pretty productive week in terms of watching those guys. And yeah, we don't know, but again, Will Howard is somebody that certainly he has a chance to make a case for himself over the next couple months.
The one thing, and because Tommy Rees has coached Jalen Milroe as an offensive coordinator, the Browns are going to know some things about Jalen Milroe that other teams just don't know. I'm not saying they're going to take them, but Tommy Rees will have some knowledge about Jalen Milroe that nobody else will. He's worked with him for an entire season. He will know these are things that we wanted him to work on. These were things he did really well. That stuff's invaluable if you're looking at a long-term answer. They have the answers to the questions with Jalen Milroe that they'd probably like for all the quarterbacks in the draft.
Yeah, they will have the inside track on Jalen Milroe in terms of knowing what he's like, how he takes coaching, what he's like in the meeting rooms, what he's like on the practice field, what he's like in the heat of the moment, what his strengths are, what his weaknesses are. I mean, Tommy knows everything about him. And Tommy also is kind of known for being able to really reach and get through to players. That's supposedly one of his strengths. And so he will know, and they will rely heavily on his opinion in this evaluation process. I mean, not that many people get the opportunity to do that, where you get that up close and personal with a prospect that you're thinking about drafting. So I'm very, very curious to get his thoughts, his opinions on Jalen, and just see how this plays out over the next few months.
I know you've you and Dan Lobby and Ashley Bastock on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast deep dive on the offensive kind of retooling the offensive roster. What areas do you think the Browns need to upgrade in significantly? I guess would be a qualifier, because they probably need to upgrade the roster on offense as pretty much everywhere you would look. But which are the key areas that you think they need to?
Well, after quarterback, I'm really big on the notion of, I think they have to add 2 to 3 really good quality pass catchers. Elijah Moore's contract is up. Now you've got Cedric Tillman coming off of a concussion that cost him the final 6 games of the season. So I think you have to plan for the possibility that he might suffer another concussion at some point and have to miss more time. Once you get one, it seems easier to get another one. So I think they have to keep that in mind. I would be going out and finding 3 more good quality pass catchers, maybe a combination of 2 receivers, 1 Pro Bowl caliber, maybe another tight end to pair with David Njoku. Plus he's starting to, get up there a little bit. And you never really do know when these guys will start to decline a little bit in their physical skills, or when their bodies will start to give out on them. And David Njoku suffered this year with a lot of injuries. So I think they have to maybe go out and find themselves another really, really good young tight end. And these are things that I think you can find in the draft. I know it sounds like when I'm talking about how to fix the Browns, it seems impossible with some of the things I'm suggesting, but I think you can go find some of these pieces in the draft if you've really been on top of your P's and Q's this fall with everything that's been going on out there. So I think maybe you find a receiver in the 2nd round or something like that. Maybe you trade for one. They're always very good at doing that. And then, obviously you'll look in free agency as well.
So when you look at the defense, you've got Myles Garrett, you've got Denzel Ward. That's a pretty good. You've got a cover corner. You've got an elite edge rusher. That's a pretty good start to a good defense. Do they not need as much infusion of talent on the defense, or what areas would you do defensively as a deep dive as well?
Well, those guys, some guys will be coming off of injuries, so you're going to have a little bit of an infusion of talent that way. But what they still don't know, and this was the number one thing I cited in our defensive pod, was the fact that they don't know what's happening yet with JOK. We don't know if he's going to be able to come back healthy. I think as we move through the offseason and we start to talk to, Andrew Berry, maybe at the combine, Andrew Berry at the owners' meetings, they'll have a better idea of when JOK might be able to come back and if they can count on him for this season or early on in the season. If they can't, then they're going to need to go out and try to find another rangy, fast, multiple linebacker like that, and that's not going to be easy to replace. He was a Pro Bowl caliber linebacker, so that's one area to look at. I would go out and find a surefire double-digit sacker somehow, unless you really think that Isaiah McGuire can be that, or Alex Wright can be that, or maybe the combination of those two can come up with 12, 13 sacks together. Maybe they can, but I think that's been a missing piece lately, is having that guy that can do that for you. So I would definitely look there. And then you have to hope that Martin Emerson rebounds from what everyone can agree was a little bit of a step back from last year. Instead of him moving forward into becoming a Pro Bowl caliber cornerback, he had a little bit of a down year. So these are some areas they're going to have to look at.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, great stuff. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it, Mary Kay.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you check her out. Great stuff on the Browns, cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. She will be in Mobile, Alabama at the Senior Bowl coming up next week. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report straight ahead. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Tony Grossi, longtime Browns beat reporter, with his beliefs on which rookie quarterbacks intrigue the Browns.
If you had to do the odds for the rookies right now, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe, who leads?
I would say Milroe. I just don't know at 2 or 33. Wow. And it's close.
Guys, Tony, I'm
Hold
sorry.
on.
Milroe at 2 is insane.
There you go. Tone, really?
It may be.
Is that in play?
If they fall in love with him so much, especially after the combine, and supposedly he's a real smart guy,
Yes!
football IQ
Tone,
guy.
I like the kid a lot. I don't like him at 2 because the pressure and everybody would say the Browns reached and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The bottom line is I see him as a Josh Allen Lamar type for me.
Well, if he's that good, take him at 2 then. If you're putting him in that company, I'd have no problem taking him
Tony
at
needs
2.
a lot of work.
With that, let's welcome in Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. And Fred, that's the combine is gonna be interesting with Jalen Milroe. The one thing I'll say, and I've said it, and I'll continue to say it, Tommy Rees should know him better than anybody because he coached him for an entire year at Alabama. You learn a lot about a guy by having him run your offense for a season.
Yeah, if there's any insight to be had, that would be the telltale sign. I mean, as far as, if Rees really likes him, sees the upside that they were just talking about, why wouldn't you take him, whenever? Um, he's one of those guys that you feel like needs to stay in college, but the way it is in the NFL now, that the guys turn pro, and that's what he's going to do. I, for one, think he's going to go to the combine and he's going to put up great numbers because I believe he's really fast. I don't know if he's 4.4 or what he is, but you're going to get a lot of comparisons to some of the ones mentioned, the Lamar Jacksons, Josh Allen, big, durable, and so forth. But so if you take him at number 2, then the pressure is to play sooner than later. It'd be if you really like him and he isn't, expected to go or he isn't projected to go, you can take him at the end of the first round, trade up a spot or two with that 33rd pick, or take him 33rd. The big draw, obviously, in the first round, you get that extra year. If you draft him, wherever it is, then you really do have to get a veteran quarterback. And as I've been saying in some of my writings, I think you got to really look at this and not even count on college on the draft. The free agency and trade market, is in mid-March. And so you really need to address it like this is your shot, to get a starting quarterback, whatever it is. So, and if you can get somebody that you feel real good about as the starting quarterback, then you really need a lot of things. And I'm more of a proponent of getting an impact player in the top 5 and not trading down and monkeying around. If there's a Myles Garrett type player and he's not a quarterback like an Abdul Carter or somebody that you feel like is a can't miss defensive end or defensive tackle, or a Travis Hunter, those type of guys, you don't mess around and pass them up. So the quarterbacks always get valued or overvalued, and people move up to take them. And so that's the game you're playing with. But as you mentioned, Tommy Rees has had a front row seat with Milroe and ought to be able to know pretty quick, is this a guy that you want long term to be the face of your team?
Yeah, and to your point, when you think about the cornerstones, Myles Garrett 1, Denzel Ward 4. You need that kind of player if you're going to take a swing at number 2. It can't be a question mark. You wrote an article, and take us through this. Key questions that Andrew Berry was not asked at his press briefing, given the Browns' NFL draft record. Going into one of the most critical seasons, including free agency in the NFL draft, what gives you, you're asking Andrew Berry that question, and your staff the thought and confidence that you'll get it right this time, given your track record, especially in the draft? And take us through kind of that. I get he hasn't drafted high, but Jedrick Wills was a huge miss at 10.
Yeah, that was his first pick, and not too good. He's only had 2 first-round picks. The other one was Greg Newsome, in the 20s. But when you're drafting the first and even second round, those guys, I don't know if the bar is just starters. I mean, starters on a 3-14 team. I look at Pro Bowl, and in 37 picks he's made in 5 years, they have 1 Pro Bowler, and that was JOK last year. And I think he was an alternate that, took somebody's place. Might have been the best draft pick he's had, in the 37 picks. As you said, he's only had 2 first-round picks. They traded 3 first-round picks and a couple second-round for Deshaun Watson, so he didn't get to pick. But who made that decision to trade those 5 picks away? Probably Andrew Berry was involved in that. So that was it was a question. It was kind of in a little spoof because that was my question that I couldn't get out. Just ran out of time, and you know how those goes. It's kind of like a free-for-all, everybody screaming out their questions, and I guess I'm not rude enough to interrupt people. So anyway, my question is, it's not all on him, but his staff, his scouts. Do you really trust in such a big off season or a draft that they're going to get it right? I mean, you got to get number 2 right. And you can't force the pick at quarterback. If you're sold that Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward or even Jalen Milroe is the franchise quarterback, then you take them because hopefully you're not picking there again. But just because they're the top quarterbacks in the 2025 NFL draft, you can't just draft somebody because maybe these guys would be ranked lower than guys taken in the first round in years past. So you can't force it. You got to take the best player. You always heard take the best player, and that's what I'm saying. But going back to the premise, do you trust them? And obviously, time has passed. The Haslams, those that make the decisions, trust Andrew Berry and his staff with this offseason because they did not move on from them. I was maybe being a proponent. There's been some GMs, that were let go that have some pretty good track records, and maybe you could bring somebody in as a consultant. Then you pick up all their expertise, from studying for this draft if they're currently without a team, and to get all the help you can get because it's so right. Not just 2, but 33. Those are both basically like first round picks, and you really got to hit on both those. I get that there might not be the year that you're up here, there might not be a franchise quarterback, but you have to make that determination and then, get the best player available at number 2. And if you feel like you can trade down and somebody that really wants one of those guys, then you squeeze it, but not to get past the top 5. I just feel like, whatever it is, the blue chip players, there's usually not more than 4, 5, 6 in every draft. And you don't want to trade outside of that. So you're just getting a good player. You're not getting a franchise impacting player.
I know you also wrote an article, Brown's possible 2025 starting quarterback targets in trade and free agency. So trade possibilities, you list Geno Smith and Derek Carr, which intriguing. So Smith, Seahawks, Carr with the Saints, who's been beat up the last couple of years. Free agents, you got Darnold, Jones, Cousins, Brissett, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Jameis Winston. Of all those, and I'm not opposed to Cousins. I'm intrigued by Daniel Jones, but Derek Carr is a guy that I've always thought if you put him in the right system and you give him a little bit of protection, he usually plays pretty well.
He's always played well against the Browns. I mean, he beat them 35-14. This year I know Taysom Hill did a lot of damage, but I'm looking at with what I just said previous segment about Andrew Berry's track record and draft. What he's been best at is making trades with teams that it hasn't been at quarterback, but with teams that have older or experienced veteran players that the team, for whatever reason, needs to get out from under the salary or move on. And that's where, he identified Amari Cooper. You really just had to be willing to take on the money. I mean, I could judge that talent and say, hey, that guy's pretty good. If all I have to give up is a 5th and 6th round pick, it's just really taking on the money. Same thing he did with Jerry Jeudy. Same thing he did with Darius Smith. And so when you look at that, if Geno Smith, if the Seahawks say, he's doing well, but he's 35, he wants a new contract, and they have a $16 million roster bonus due right at the beginning of the league year, they could say, yeah, we're gonna go another direction because we don't want to commit to him long term. Well, you could trade for him. Then he doesn't have the right to turn you down. I don't believe he has a no trade. you know you have an experienced, ready-to-go quarterback that can step in day one. And he could bide you time for a year or two till you keep looking for a replacement, the long-term young guy. The other one, Derek Carr, same type thing. Now, his contract situation's a little murkier to me. I know that the Saints need to get under the contract situation and restructure with him. I don't know if trading him makes it unaffordable, with the dead cap on the Saints, but Andrew Berry's pretty good at that stuff with restructuring, figure things out. And so that's why I put down Smith and Carr. Carr would be my first choice if you can work that out. But Smith is a little cleaner. He's already under contract, I think $31 million. That saves, if the Seahawks decide you can trade for him, restructure, you've got an inexpensive veteran starter from the get-go. But Carr, if you could do something like that, I think the same type thing. The other guys, nobody at this time last year, I thought, Sam Darnold was going to do what he did. And really, it's taken a flyer on a guy. The biggest hope with a Cousins, you assume you wouldn't trade for him, but if he gets released like everybody expects, that he could hook back up with Kevin Stefanski and just cut the turnovers down and play well in this system. He wasn't really in this system in Atlanta. So Sam Darnold, are any of the other guys, like that? Is Zach Wilson the next Sam Darnold, a number 2 or 3 pick overall, or a Justin Fields? Although Fields seems like he would be more in the line of what they're trying to get away from, the read, pass, run first type of offense. So it's there's a reason these guys are available all the time at this time is because they're just not clear-cut franchise quarterbacks. But you got to look, and I think Kevin Stefanski they just got to put the ball in his court and say, okay, if it comes down, we can't trade for anybody. We have to get a free agent or the draft pick. Who's the best suited? And we've saw Jacoby Brissett stepped in and played well. In fact, he might have played, he definitely played better than Watson, and they were putting up points that year. A guy like that, or who on that availability list could do it. We saw Winston, if you had a strong running game, I think Winston could be a lot better if you didn't make him to throw the ball 40 to 50 times a game. That's his weakness, is the interceptions. We all know that. So get the run first going, and then get a quarterback that fits into what you want to do.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Recipe for optimism this offseason. Fred wrote an article. We'll dive into that. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Full Court Action is a half-hour devoted exclusively to men's and women's basketball from across the Mid-American Conference. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave Bacon. Join me at 6:30 Tuesday nights, and we'll meet the coaches and players from the Mid-American Conference who are making an impact in basketball. Full Court Action will spotlight the top plays and performances from all across the Mid-American Conference, with some historical action as well. Catch Full Court Action Tuesday nights at 6:30 on Rock Entertainment Sports Network. We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Fred, you wrote an article, recipe for optimism in the offseason to get the Browns back to winning games, and you kind of delineated a few things. Number one, get the defense back on track, take care of the football, and solve the kicking problem. So take us through that and kind of your thoughts there.
Well, at this time of the year, you're kind of looking for answers, like the coaches and the team is. But I think, in looking at the quickest fix right now in mid-January, I mean, the obvious is the franchise quarterback, the guy that can turn a team around. We know what Jaden Daniels did. The Commanders went from 4-13 to now they're on the doorstep of the Super Bowl, and they had the number 2 pick. But I don't know if there's a Jaden Daniels ready to walk through the door. With that said, the defense, we know what they did the first year. They dropped off this past year. I think that's the closest fix. Whether it was just not bring in really any new additions, they brought the band back together. A lot of 30-something defensive linemen. I still think they played well. They actually played well until they traded Zadarius Smith. Even Jim Schwartz mentioned that their pass rate, pressure rate, and that dropped off until the very end of the year. They kind of got back on track when Isaiah McGuire and Michael Hall and some of them young guys got going. So you can identify, it could be as simple as the number 2 pick. Maybe you get the edge rusher, and Abdul Kardish, the answer opposite Myles Garrett, or Mason Graham at defensive tackle. But if you can get your defense back, they don't have to be number 1 again like they were in 23, but top 10. But more than anything, get the points allowed down. Last year, they ended up giving up like 26 points a game. If you look at the season, the first 7 games, they really played well enough in 5 of those 7 games to get wins, and they won 1. So just there with a little bit of offense, I mean, I'm talking just scoring 21 points would have gotten you 4 more wins, and you could have been 5-2 or even 4-3, and the season was over when you're 1-6. And I think that offensive poor play spilled over, and the defense then started getting affected. And what I'm saying, get that defense back to be a shutdown defense, and then cut out the turnovers on the offense. 34 turnovers. I mean, that's 34 drives that were stopped, and that's also putting your defense back on the field 34 times. That's like 3 times, at least 2 times a game more, and a lot of times on shortened fields, and that's the result why the defense gave up more points. So those 2 things, and I mean, quick fix, whether it's Dustin Hopkins or get him fixed or get somebody to kick in his place, that to me is the quick fix. Obviously, the big picture is the offense. But if your defense was scoring or holding the opponent to 20 points a game around in there, I think you can, eliminate the turnovers, and that would put more points on the board for you. And then on defense, obviously they preach it. And I asked Jim Schwartz about the takeaways. They only had 12 takeaways last year, and that's the biggest reason they were dead last in the turnover ratio. They were minus 22. The year before, the offense turned the ball over 37 times, but the defense took it away 28 times. So that allowed them to win 11 games, get to the playoffs. You got to get that fixed. You got to take the ball away. And I think that's pure dropped interceptions, ball bounces the wrong way on fumbles. But the offense, take care of it, cut that down, and give yourself a chance.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Fred.
All right, Dave. Stay warm.
We'll try. Fred Greetham, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff. He is the senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, film breakdown, video analysis, 3 keys to Ohio State winning the national championship. That's straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Are you ready? The Ohio Lottery is about to unleash 50 new millionaires on Ohio. Want a chance to become one? Play VIP Millions. With 50 $1 million winning tickets, it's your best chance to win $1 million ever.
We turn our attention to the Ohio State Buckeyes. Won the national championship last night, defeating the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Film breakdown, video analysis. 3 main reasons that the Buckeyes bring home the national championship. Lance, number one, you got third down conversions. Take us through this.
Well, Will Howard was outstanding, right? So right here, this is two things here. One is it's just a little hitch route to Jeremiah Smith on 3rd and 5. Kind of a players over play thing. Then what they did really well is this plus run one game. See left guard pull. This is just the power. Now, when you go back to this initial play here, this isn't a great look to throw a hitch. It's man coverage with an All-American corner on him. But sometimes you got to not overthink it and just throw it to your best players. And, Will Howard is very good, again, with the speed in his arm. I really like the plus one run game both teams use, but really with Ohio State because it allows them to get 3 receivers in the game, 3 elite receivers, and then they can run the ball with Will Howard, obviously those backs. That's what I really think in the first half, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish could not get off the field. Ohio State consistently converted those thirds down that kept those drives alive. Ohio State was 3 for 3 in that first half just because they completed those third downs, and that's killer for a defense.
All right, number 2, 3 reasons that Ohio State defeated Notre Dame. Controlled the line of scrimmage. So take us through that and your thoughts here.
We're going to see, I got three down linemen circled. And this is what you saw throughout the playoffs. So you get 3rd down and long. They're going to force a short throw. And then with those athletes in the secondary, Ohio State is able to rally to the football, react, and get there and make tackles before they get first down. So this is true on every rundowns as well, but especially in passing yards where they were able to create pressure with 3 and 4 guys, which means you get to drop 7 or 8 guys. And for a quarterback, that's an absolute nightmare. Now, Jack Sawyer was really good. JTT was really good. Those guys inside were really good. But what they did really well is they rallied and tackled. And this is what they've done well throughout this playoff run. Ever since their loss to Michigan, they've played elite defense. But that front 4 has been able to handle both the run and the pass without having help with blitzes, which makes their coverage even better.
All right, and the third reason of the 3 main reasons that Ohio State won the national championship, didn't overthink it. Players over plays.
Well, you're going to see right here, this is really nasty by Chip Kelly here. So what you're going to get is you're going to get man coverage inside the red zone. Chip Kelly knows it. So this is actually Ohio State got beat with this Alabama. Watch that corner I have circled. He's going to scramble to get over the top. And in man coverage, when you get motion across, if you're not going to bump it, or even if you do bump it, you've got to be really quick with the secondary switches or really flat if you're going to cover all the way across. So what ends up happening here is they're going to run orbit motion, and then they're going to return it. So you're going to see Smith on the snap of the ball. He is going to go backwards, and that corner's going to scream out of there. It's just no way you can get back and cover Jeremiah Smith. And I appreciate they tried to. I don't know if they were trying to bump it or if they were trying to run with, but they knew something was coming with Jeremiah Smith, and they had a plan for it. It was just a better call. So not only did they execute at high level, but again, if you go back to that first hitch play, that wasn't a great play. Sometimes you can't overthink it. Sometimes you just got to get the ball in space to your best players. Throw it up to Jeremiah Smith, chances are he's going to come with it. So just a really good plan by Chip Kelly and his staff, offensive staff, Ryan Day, and everybody involved. But again, they didn't overthink it, and when things got tough, put the football in your best players' hands.
So what did you Will Howard played really well, and you kind of alluded to it at the beginning. When you've looked at him, what have you thought of him relative to, the NFL?
Well, there's two, it's funny. I was just asked this earlier today, and here's 2 things that stand out to me. First of all, he's hard to evaluate at times because he's legitimately got 5 first-round skill guys, right? The 2 backs and the 3 receivers. He's got a really good tight end in for what they use the tight ends for. So he's got a tight end who's going to be drafted, 3 receivers are going to be drafted, 2 tailbacks are going to be drafted, all probably on the first day into the second day. So really, really talented. Next thing they do, Ohio State's so good at those RPOs, so many of his throws are behind the line of scrimmage or within 10 yards. Now, that being said, I look forward to charting his throws over 10 yards because that's really what it comes down in the NFL. Can you chunk play it from 10 to 25 yards? He doesn't do a ton of that. Not that he can't, but if I had one knock against him, it would probably be, can he drive the ball in weather late in the season in these outdoor stadiums or wherever it is against these elite when the other team has just as much elite talent as he has. It takes nothing away from him, but in terms of evaluating him, does he have that arm strength to drive the ball? If you look at him, when you watch him, he's just a really good football player. And sometimes it sounds weird, but that doesn't carry over to the NFL because everybody's a good football player. So I'll be interested to see how he progresses. I actually really I'm going to move him up in my breakdowns because I am really intrigued. He had just an outstanding 4-game stretch here. So, I'm not sure quite yet, but if I had one, it would just be his ability to drive the ball. Does he have elite arm strength?
The other thing, and I'm with you, I agree. I've said that relative to the skill position players. There's something about them though. There's a competitiveness. To have those skill position guys respond to you. It's one of the things you're looking for in a quarterback. He has the makeup and the competitiveness that you look for in a quarterback.
There's a lot to be said. I read a long time ago. I read an article by Bill Parcells and how he evaluates quarterbacks. It's much different than how they do it now. It's not about arm talent. It's about how many starts do you have and do you play well against good people. And he's done that. They got off to a slow start, but that's a whole new scheme, a whole new philosophy coming out of Kansas State, where Klein had him running the ball a ton, and obviously he could still run the ball, but he's become much more of an NFL talent because of what Chip Kelly and Ryan Day have done for him. Now, again, one thing that cannot be understated here is his ability to win. And whether you have good people around you or not, he's won a lot of games, and both at Kansas State and now at Ohio State, and with the national championship. He's definitely somebody you got to take a look at. I'll be honest with you, I didn't have him in my top 7, and I look forward to breaking him down in depth, digging deep on him and see if he is an NFL talent, because he certainly is an NFL competitor.
The other one that jumps to mind is Emeka Egbuka. And again, if Jeremiah Smith wasn't there, Egbuka is going to be a first-round pick. He's going to probably be in the 20s, late teens, early 20s, maybe slip into the late 20s. He's got everything you want in a wide receiver. He's the next in line at Ohio State.
Well, it kind of goes back to like Terry McLaurin, right? He wasn't like super, super duper at Ohio State, but he has all those skills. Again, we talked about it before. His ability to release off the line of scrimmage in both man and zone. He understands how to work angles. He's a great route runner. They're very well coached there at Ohio State. Then he's really good at the catch point. He's really good run after catch. But the thing they really like is that they all work together. He doesn't mind blocking. He has had zero ego with Jeremiah Smith. He hasn't been frustrated at all. Not only could he be a number 1 guy, Cardinal Tate could be a number 1 guy in a number of teams. So I think he's done a really good job. It super impressed me last night. And the guy that I don't think he should be in the 1A with Genty is TreVeyon Henderson, is an elite tailback. His numbers weren't great last night. It would not shock me if TreVeyon Henderson's the best pro back, including Genty. Everybody involved because of his skill set, pass blocking out of the backfield. His feet have been outstanding. If he stays healthy, along with Egbuka, those are going to be 2 really good pros.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. I'm sure we'll talk to you a little bit later in the week. We'll begin some draft positional breakdowns as you're looking at some of the guys that are the tops at each of the positions.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Can't wait.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Always good film breakdown, video analysis for cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.